everyone. In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Camille Pagan, and I bet she says her name way cooler than that, okay? Because she's got a little dash in the pagan, so it might be pagan. I will ask her about that. We're going to be talking about her fourth novel that came out just a couple weeks ago, and it's called Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. This book made me laugh. It made me cry. It hit too close to home in way too many places. Okay. And I can't wait to talk to her about it. She's amazing. She's a tall poppy writer, and I love those women. So, everyone, here is Camille.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be introducing to you author Camille Pagan, and we're going to be talking about her fourth novel that just came out a couple of weeks ago called Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. Thank you so much for talking with me, Camille. I'm so happy that I got to talk to you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm thrilled to be here.
I loved this book so much, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
It hit so close to home with me on so many levels, but one of them being that I'm 53.
You're kidding. Oh,
No.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but I laughed and then I cried and then the ending was so good and
thank you.
What a great book.
Thank you. I loved writing it.
I mean, there's not a woman, I think, that hasn't gone through one of the stages that Maggie goes through, you know? There's something that they have to identify with her, you know?
Yes. I've been hearing that a lot from readers, and I'm so happy because I certainly felt that way when I was writing it, but you never know. You know, you're in your little universe of one, typing away. It's hard to predict how things will sit with readers, and so have been very pleased by the response.
Well, and, okay, so just to tell you, when I was 47, I got divorced, and it was right after my mom died. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, that's how, so I went through, I kind of relived it, with Maggie, and it was but it was good. You know how you need just one of those, soul searching? It wasn't I was, so happy that I got to go through it with her, because some of it hit so close to what I went through that I was like, wow, how did she know? How did she know that I went through this? We can wake up one day and it just be, it's called Woman Last Seen in Her 30s. And I've raised 6 children. I'm still raising children. They're teenagers, but my oldest is 30. And, that is what happened to me. I mean, when my mom died, it kind of woke me up whoa, now what? What am I going to do now? I didn't even know I didn't even, she died of cancer, but it was pretty quick. But it's almost I don't know why we identify if we've had our mom with us for a certain amount of time. And I just didn't expect to feel the feelings that I felt, with that. I didn't prepare. It's almost like I didn't prepare myself to not be with her. And then going through the divorce so soon afterwards. And it all went so fast. And you just kind of one day I was like, oh my God, what happened? What happened?
Right. Well, I wrote this book while my grandmother was passing away, and she was as close to me as a mother. She helped raise me. She was very young when she had my mother, so we were not that far apart in age in terms of a grandmother and a granddaughter. And I really felt that sense of loss and losing, the North Star, as the matriarchs leave us or leave our lives. It really changes our self-identity, and it makes a big difference. So I think, there's that sense of that in the book.
Oh, absolutely. And I had the same, we lived with my grandmother, and she was only 40 years older than me because my mom had me at 17.
Yes.
And so I did go through, when my grandmother died a while ago, but then going through it, and it was really weird because my grandmother died when my mom was 47, and then it was just a weird turn of event. And then she died when I was 47. And it was a weird turn of events, but I just, to capture her anger and then her sadness, like all those
Mhm.
stages of grief. And I don't even know that I went through them all. Like some days I don't think that I did, but it's like when you're raising kids, you just keep going. Now her kids were a little bit older, but
Yeah.
I did have older children also when I was going through it. So I kind of identified with that too when,
Oh, that's
when her kids were trying to tell her what to do and how to do things and, and you're like, I need to figure this out on my own.
that's definitely our lot as mothers. I think that you have no choice but to power through for whatever that may be. I'm sorry, that's my assistant over here working in the background. And so, we carry on through it all.
Right. I wish that I would have gone to Italy.
Don't we all?
And I love how in the book how you say, she's like, I don't want to be so eat, pray, and love about this, but
Right.
and that's exactly what I thought actually, when I was going through it. I did know other women who were kind of going. That's what I mean. It's like there are so many women at this age. I wasn't alone because I did know other people going through it, but I remember saying that to one of my friends. I'm like, I just want to go to the airport and take the first flight out, and I don't even care where it goes. And she was like, it's okay. I felt that too. And I was like, oh, good. Like, cause I was like, I want to run away from my children. I can't run away from my children, but I just wanted to run away so bad,
Right, that desire to escape.
Yeah. Yeah, just so you can think, It's just, I don't know. But I thought you captured that perfect because every woman I know, wanted to do it. But she actually did it, and so I was, so proud of her.
Thank you. Thank you. I love the Italy part. It wasn't in the first draft of the book, and I thought, Maggie's going through this journey, and she really needed a catalyst. There had to be something that helped her begin to choose her change, because that first change happens to her. She, the events in her life start unfolding, and she doesn't see them coming, and she doesn't want it. She digs her heels in. And she, like anyone going through this, had to decide at some point, okay, I'm going to take the reins, and I'm going to own this, even though it wasn't what I chose initially. And Italy is where that starts to happen for her. She begins to see that there are other possibilities beyond the life that she's known. And that was really exciting to write.
Yeah, and I so identified with her drinking too, because I'm not a drinker, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I found myself at first I would have a glass of wine to go to bed,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was and so when she was going through that, and then I did the same thing she did. I went to nothing. I was like, no, I can't. Because
Right.
I had 2 children at home still to raise, and I was like, I cannot do this to and I don't know, I just knew that I couldn't go that route. I couldn't go pills and drinking, and I had to just go through the pain somehow, even if it was going to take longer that way.
Yeah, to just feel it and let it be raw. Well, that came about, that part of the book, because I had been working as the health editor at Real Simple magazine. And as part of my job there, I had written a feature on women and alcohol, and had found out during the process of interviewing researchers and combing through medical literature that most women who drink too much, and by most I mean more than 90%, don't do it because they are addicted. They do it because it's a habit. And alcohol is all around us, and it's something you see on television and read in magazines and in books, that it's just this easy way to de-stress. And Lord knows we have a lot of stress. And so a lot of women are choosing not to drink just out of a decision to be healthy, out of finding a different way to de-stress. And I have never received so many emails and so many Facebook messages as I did from this one article. People are just saying, thank you for writing this. It really hit home. I was doing this, or I used to have this bad habit and I turned away from it. And I just thought it was so interesting because we hear so much about addiction, but not really about the habit side of it or just the coping mechanism of drinking. So I wove that into the story.
Yeah, I love that because my mom was not a drinker at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then she married later after my dad had died. She married a drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she just started right before she had died, and I didn't even know it. I saw her drinking more, but at some point I was like, wait, she's drinking, and I didn't really confront her too much about it, but I know that it wasn't to get drunk. I knew that about her. Like, she wasn't
Right.
drinking to get drunk, but I could see that her body was starting to become more dependent on it. You know, it
Yes.
was like I don't know, she made up excuses for whatever she did, but I realized that with women, or from what I noticed with her, is that men can deal with it differently, but I saw her not. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go get drunk tonight. That wasn't what she was doing. She was
Right.
just trying to self-medicate, like, I need to sleep, I need to this, I need to, sit down and relax, and that involved having a glass of wine in front of her. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I could so easily go down that path. Like, that was definitely...
Almost anyone could, and that's really the sobering part of it, no pun intended. Is
Yeah.
that it is a very easy road to take, and I had a couple of researchers point out how much our culture has to do with that. 20 years ago even, you didn't have cupcake wine, and you didn't see signs
Oh,
on
I
the side of
know.
the road and advertisements, and alcohol is very much targeted at women now. And, I love wine. I certainly enjoyed it when I went to Italy, which is kind of what inspired this,
The trip.
the Italian section of the
Yeah.
book, yeah. But writing that story really made me think long and hard about being careful about how the role that alcohol had in my life.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's so pervasive. I think you should be able to go to brunch and not have a glass of wine, or, have a couple days off, or go to a social function and choose not to drink and have that be normal. What I hear from a lot of women also, because part of my job as a journalist is interviewing women for different stories. And when you choose not to drink, whether it's for one day or a year or for forever, people really question it. What's wrong with you? Are you
Right.
are you addicted? It can just be a normal choice, but people don't necessarily react to you that way.
I actually had to quit book clubs because it was centered around wine.
Yeah.
Because the women, that's how they were, because they self-identify with, like, reading, going to a book club and having wine. And I was like,
Right.
I can't. First of all, I'm a small person, so for me to go somewhere, have a glass of wine, and drive back, like, that's not even, who wants to risk that anyway?
Right.
And then when I would make that decision, it was like, oh, come on. It was like peer pressure. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
need this peer pressure in my life,
Yep.
So I just stopped going. But it's weird. We kind of do that as women to each other. We question everything about what you're doing,
And it's so interesting when you start paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? What is it for? Is it something? I think a lot of it is again a habit. We're socialized to expect certain things, and we question when it's not there.
Right.
But sometimes you're questioning in the wrong direction. It's perfectly healthy to go to a book club and not have a glass of wine.
Right. Exactly. Right. To just want to go talk about the book.
Yep.
Well, we don't give spoilers away, but I loved the ending. Okay.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I am so happy that you wrote her like that, because I don't know. I wasn't in her situation exactly, but I don't know what I would have done. I really don't. Like, she had two roads she could have gone down, and I was okay with either one of them. I really was. I was like, good. I was like, of course, like, why wouldn't you go, the other way too? But then as it got towards the end, I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, she had her moment of clarity as well. And, I almost always have the endings of my books in mind as I start to write. I don't know the middle. I don't outline very much, but I know how the book will end because I just have to have that vision. And with Maggie, I always knew the ending would be what it was. What was really neat to write was the journey of how she got there, and really recognizing herself as a person on her own. Because as women, we're wives, mothers, sisters, so many different roles. But who are we without all those labels? I don't know. It's really a tricky thing, and so it was neat to write her finding out who she was when she wasn't a wife to her husband.
Right. And separating a little bit too from the children, and,
the
discovering
center of
herself.
the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking, like, when I was growing up, my grandparents were married 60 years. Okay. And so in my brain, it's like, well, so am I. Like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to meet, I'm going to meet someone, and then I'm going to be married 60 years. That was the hardest part of my story to rewrite. Like, who am I without that 60-year marriage? And
Right.
especially at this age, like everybody's celebrating 25, 30 years of marriage, and you're like, you know, you see it on Facebook, you see it on, you know, and it's like, you feel like a failure. I was like, how did I end up failing? How did that happen? You know, why
Because
didn't
you
my
expect
story
something
end?
else.
You know?
And then you have to learn to say that, no, this is a different kind of success story.
Right.
You know, this is the right thing for me. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how many people who've read the book have said something very similar to what you just said.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know,
The idea of the failure and then
yeah.
realizing it's not, but you have to let go of that idea.
Well, and with me having the 6 children,
Oh, yeah.
I had to go through what their grief also.
Yeah.
You know, like they take turns being mad at me. You know,
Right.
or having advice like, you know, you should do this, or no, you know, and then another one would be like, no, you got to handle it like this, and then another one, no, you got to do this, you know, and it was like I used to be like, oh, just I need like to think, I need to, you know, concentrate on the children that I have to raise, and then the older children have to like, and I had to deal with the fact that they were going to be mad. You know, some of them, it took a while to not be mad. It wasn't an instant in which I want to tell women, like, that goes, because I do know women that this is not uncommon, that they will blame the mom way quicker no matter what happens in the relationship. You know, it's the mom
that
that's
all the
expected,
time.
you know, to hold on to the family, you know, no matter what. And, you know, you just have to go through it because eventually they'll figure, you know, they have to go through what they're going through. And you have to let them. And that was one woman gave me that advice, and I was like, but I can't. I was like, no, I can't do it. You know, he's not talking to me. And she was like, I know. You have to be okay with that. I was like, oh my God, I didn't. You know, I raised these children, and then they're going to be mad at me.
What about all the time I put in?
Right, because that was my identity. I didn't work. You know, I stayed at home, and you know, it was just, it's. That's why with every stage she went through, and she went through it with her son and her daughter, you know, celebrate holidays, don't celebrate holidays, do it this way, do it. Like, I went through every single one of those scenarios.
Oh, that's great. Oh,
you know, so
true.
Oh, it really, really did, and that's why I kept rooting for her the whole time.
Yeah, you want to see her pull through. I mean, I really, of all the books I've written, I have 4 in print and several more that didn't make it to print. And then I'm working on a book now. Maggie really is my favorite character.
Is she?
She's just such a great person. The kind of person you want to end up next to on a plane, you know?
Yes. Yes. Well, I have a favorite quote of mine, and I really struggled between the first sentence because I love that, but I also I love this quote so much. So because on Fridays I always post like what my favorite thing about each book that it gets posted that week, and I was like, so I had to decide, and I decided on this one. But if there's one thing I do believe in, it's wiping the crap off your shoes and finding a fresh patch of grass to stand on.
Yeah.
And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so that's so amazing. What a great quote.
Oh, thanks.
And I like, I want to keep that with me, you know, all the time, you know, because it's like, it's just right, exactly, just wipe the crap off, just wrap on it fresh patch.
And I love, I think Jean says that, right?
Yeah.
And I loved writing her too. She's this quirky older woman.
Loved her.
Really has carved out a path for herself in a stage of life that a lot of people associate with, you know, the end. She's in her late 60s. Her marriage ended after her husband died, and she was already on her way to leaving that marriage. And she, by all accounts, is at, you know, the late stage of her life, and she says, well, I'm going to have a big career for myself. I'm going to become a painter, and I'm going to travel, and I'm going to get a fellowship, and just really an exciting, vibrant person. And I think she's that first little bit of light that Maggie sees. Like, oh, okay, it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can start again.
Right. And I think, you know, I look to older women to do that. And I want to be that older woman, you know, for the women behind me. Like, because you know, it's so important for us to see, and I do have older women around me that are like, you know, it's okay, you know, as your kids leave and as this happens, like, it's okay. You'll
Yes.
you'll be okay, and just to be, and I'll call them. I'll be like, but then this happened, and they're like, yeah, you should just go go to the bookstore today and get a coffee. And
Take yourself out for a date.
I know.
Oh, as women,
And
we
I'm
don't
like,
take care of ourselves.
right,
It's like you
because
need permission to do that, and you don't.
absolutely,
You don't need permission. But it's hard to remember
absolutely.
that sometimes.
Absolutely, because we are like, no, we got to stay home and panic and be free.
Right.
They're like, oh, don't waste the day. There'll be tomorrow and the next day, and everybody will be fine. Just go out and
There
do
will.
something
The
else.
laundry will still be waiting for you tomorrow. The bills will still be sitting there. I mean, I have to remind myself that,
Yes,
if it doesn't get done, that's all right. But it's really important to live in the moment.
it really is. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was to go to the movies, because
Oh,
to
I like
even
that.
by yourself in a movie, you won't. If it's a good, pick a good movie that you want to see, and you won't think for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And they're so right. Like, you forget because it's dark, and you're just so involved in the movie, and you come out and you're like, wow, okay, it's all bright out now. It's all different.
Yeah.
It takes you out of your mind for 2 hours, and it
Yeah.
really can change your perspective. So that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. But
That's good advice.
yeah, and I see here, your books are coming out quick. Okay.
Yeah.
You're
Thank
doing
goodness.
a lot of writing.
I've been waiting my whole life to do this. Everyone says, "Oh, you're writing so
Oh.
many books," and I say, I just am so happy that I can. It's really,
Yes.
I've always wanted to be a novelist, and I didn't start writing until right before I turned 30. I just wasn't ready. I didn't really have anything to say as a fiction author, but I trained as a journalist and worked as a health journalist, which I still do, and as an editor. And that, in a lot of ways, is really instrumental in starting my fiction career because I stay on deadline. I know how to research something I don't know about. Writing tight sentences, all of those things are really good fiction training.
Yeah, and I really can tell, too, with journalists when they write fiction, because it is tight. And I love a tight book. I really do.
I do, too. I do not want to read. I have read and loved many 400-page books, but just as many, I think this could have used an edit. And in today's world, I feel we're all very time crunched, and anything that I need to skim over, I'm not going to finish. So,
right. And it's kind of funny, when I set up my interviews, I'll look at them like 2 or 3 days ahead to see what my week's like. And when I see it's a 400-page book, I'm always like, okay. Because I know that I have to carve like a large chunk of my day.
Yes. Yeah.
I write.
Oh,
go ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I write what I want to read. I really
Yes.
love a page-turning book that also makes me feel a lot of emotions, and so that's what I set out to write, and most of the time I succeed. You always have your favorites, and certainly there are books that will never see the light of day that I've written, but I'm fortunate to be able to do it.
Yeah, and you said you have like your next book is already out there, right? Getting ready.
The draft is done, and I'm editing it right now. Yeah, so I'm hoping it'll be out in 2019.
Wow. And so, at what point did you get an edit? Get published? Like, were you self-publishing, or did you get right away go with Lake Union?
No, so my first publisher was Penguin. They published a novel, The Art of Forgetting, in 2011, 2012, first hardback, then paperback. And then I wrote a couple books after that my agent and I just decided we weren't going to try to sell. And then I wrote Life and Other Near-Death Experiences, and Penguin passed on that book because my first book had not sold very well. And Lake Union said, we want it. And I knew right away. My editor was such a champion of my work. She loved the book, and I had loved writing it. It was just, Life and Other Near-Death Experiences was like my baby.
Oh, and that
the book I wrote for myself. Yeah.
And didn't that get picked up by somebody?
Yeah, Lake Union published it, and the film rights sold, and it sold to date, I think, 170,000 copies.
Wow.
It sold really well, yeah. So it's been a wonderful experience. And then I wrote Forever is the Worst Long Time. That was my follow-up. And then Woman Last Seen in Her 30s is my fourth book.
I love the title.
Thank you. It came to me right as I was writing the first chapter. I always, I love titles. And this one came to me very quickly, and I thought, well, that's it. That's my title.
Oh, I love that title. It was like, when I saw it, I'm like, let's see, was it my 20s or my 30s? Because I did start having
We
babies
all
in
know
my
that
20s.
feeling. And the thing is, as I've been doing interviews about the book, and a lot of people have said, oh, do you feel that way? And I think that it is very common to start feeling more invisible to the world. But what Maggie learns, and what I certainly learned in writing this book, is that that's only some people. There are women who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who are certainly visible and seen, making themselves visible, feeling that they have an importance and a role in the world. And that's more important than how other people see you.
Right, right.
How do you see yourself? How are you functioning? How are you out there? Are you making a name for yourself, doing the things you love? I mean, that's really much more important. So,
and inspiring.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so inspiring. I mean, even when I started doing this, I had, my children were just like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? People aren't on YouTube, Mom, that aren't kids. Like, you are way too old for
There's no too old for anything. I really don't think so.
I know. I just had to own it and be like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care what they said. Eventually they hopped on board when they saw I was serious about it. But it's just kind of funny, when you get their first opinions. Like, what are you doing?
And I think for a young person, that is, you think that there's a cap on certain activities, but there's not. I mean, my husband loves snowboarding. And some of the snowboarders who follow are in their 70s and 80s, and they are in great health, and they're out there doing it. They're doing things that I could not do.
Right.
So I think it's just what you put your mind to.
Yeah, I definitely love seeing videos on Facebook of, like, really older people, like, still doing, and it's like, see, there is no age limit for things. You can do things. So, well, thank you so much, Camille. This was so much fun. I'm so happy that I got to talk to you. And, you're a tall copywriter, just so everybody knows out there. I mean, go on their website, and such amazing women writers. I love it.
It's a wonderful group. I'm really thrilled to be a part of it.
Oh, I love it. And some people I don't even know. Like, I'll be talking to, I was just thinking one author, I didn't even know she was in the group, and then she mentioned, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were part of them. So they're getting bigger. They're growing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You guys support each other so much, and I love seeing that. I mean, when a book comes out, you guys all, like, I'll see on all your social media, like, go read this book, and it's so inspiring. I love that.
Yeah, it's great to be, a part of a group like that where women are lifting each other up, because there's room enough for everybody.
There really is.
One person's success does not detract from yours. I think that our founder, Anne Garvin, likes to say, a rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and as a reader, like, I love seeing it because we, readers like me, like, we don't read one book.
Right.
Our
crowd is voracious. I mean, I'm a voracious reader. I want to know everything there is to read. Tell me all the good things,
Yes, I never get tired of books, and we're like, no, tell me the next book to read. Tell me the next book, and that's what I've gotten so many books from you guys. Just different, women coming to me and saying, "What about this one? Did you read this?" I'm like, "No, please give it to me." I want to read it.
Well, I'm so glad. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, so everyone, I will have Camille's links listed underneath here so you can find her, and her Amazon link to this book. And please, you know where to find me when your next book comes out. I definitely want to read it because this was just, you're such a great writer. This was just amazing.
Thank you, Phil. Oh, you made my day. Thank you. I so appreciate that.
Well, you have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks for chatting.
Yep, bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone, thank you for listening to Camille and I talk about her book. Oh my goodness, it was so good, and I loved her. We had such a great conversation. Thank you so much, Camille. And I will put all of Camille's links listed below. If you enjoyed listening to us, please hit like. If you would like to hear more about all my videos, please hit subscribe, which is right there. And until tomorrow.